All right, man. Well, look, it's Deontay from Inselbergmedia. I'm here by myself today, but I just wanted to hit some breaking news coming out. It looks like China is hitting us with 34% tariffs in retaliation to what Trump did on April 2nd. So let's jump right into it. Appreciate you, CBS Texas, for reporting on this first. It's one of the few videos I could even find this early.
We want to take you to some breaking news. New reaction to President Trump's sweeping tariffs. Within the last hour, China announced retaliatory tariffs against the U.S., causing stock futures to fall even further this morning. China announcing it will impose a 34% tariff on all imports from the U.S. beginning next Thursday. We'll be watching for the stock market's reaction when the opening bell rings later on this morning. Now, Thursday was Wall Street's worst day, get this, since 2020, with the Dow Jones dropping 4%, more than 1,600 points. All this in reaction to worldwide tariffs announced by the Trump administration.
So yeah, that's crazy. Actually, she's not wrong. The markets did drop, and I got to see another article report on this. Thanks to Ground News, I appreciate them aggregating as much as they could. Not many people have reported on it just yet, but these are the few that we got. Obviously, you got MSNBC, CNN, but we got something from Washington Post also. But we're gonna start here with the AD. Well, not the AD, but this is AD. This was short for, but China strikes back with a 34% tariff. So we already heard that in the video before from CBS. But the main thing I wanted to point out in here was that, so the Chinese government said shortly after Trump's announcement that it would take countermeasures to protect its own rights and interests. There is no winners in a trade war, and there is no way out of protectionism. I'm sorry. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce added at the time. So it just looks like right now we're going to go through some kind of trade war with China. I'm not really afraid of it. I think most stuff you buy from China is pretty much junk. We do get a lot of things from China, medicine. We get all kinds of manufacturing things that we don't make over here anymore. We get goods. Obviously, we learned about that during COVID pretty much when they shut down the trade routes or whatever. Just like when all the ports closed down from jobs and everyone had to be home anyway. That was one of the first things we noticed, is that we don't produce a lot of the products that we consume in the U.S., and the majority of it does come from China. Now, a bunch of it is junk. I'm not worried about Temu prices going up, but we're talking about medicines. We're talking about treatments. We're talking about, maybe even essential products or things that we may not even know come from China or you may not be aware of. But cleaning products and everyday things like this stuff will be replaced with hopefully with local markets or even other European goods that we take in that'll have less tariffs on them and just lower prices in general. But big thing that Washington Post was talking about was the Chinese retaliatory tariffs could actually be hurting their own market, because it's going to hurt the world market, obviously, but the markets in their country is also falling. So it's not just America who's going through this. China said Friday that it will impose 34% tariffs on the U.S. goods, matching levies targeting China by President Trump that Beijing called inconsistent with international trade rules. I mean, I don't know about that. You can't really buy any American products in China. You have this problem pretty much anywhere you go in the world. I'm over here in Austria right now, and I barely see any American cars. Even the American cars that you will see, how much of that is even made in America? Ford is our biggest producer, that is still doing combustible engines. The other two biggest producers in America, all in America and sells in America practically, is Rivian and Tesla. So obviously Tesla has factories in China and all these other places. He's trying to get other mega factories around the world, but primarily at the moment they're made in America. So those are the three biggest car companies are Ford, Tesla, and Rivian when it comes to domestic sales and domestic production. So these companies won't be affected as much by the tariffs, and that's why they're probably salivating at the thought of this trade war or anything like that, as long as they're relying on the American economy to buy their products. China Ministry of Commerce also announced a slew of non-tariff measures Friday, including the suspension of exports license of 16 U.S. firms over allegations of products having military application and adding 10 companies to its unreliable entities list. The ministry also said it launched an anti-dumping investigation into the type of medical X-ray tube imported from the United States and India. So they're basically going to take this out on the companies that are working in America right now. So it's going to be more than just tariffs, but they're also going to start restricting the movements of these companies within the country. They're going to pretty much restrict their ability to do business. Whatever these guys are saying on here, that's one thing, but we know how this pretty much goes. They don't allow companies in that don't play fair with them, i.e. Google, Facebook, or any of these big tech companies that they just pretty much made clones to in their own country. Well, rightfully so. They have like what 3-4 times our population. They don't really need our technology, to be completely honest. But we're about to find out, do we really need them? I think we do for a lot of things. I think these tariffs are going to hurt us in the long run, big time. But hopefully, the bet is that it'll bring it back to America. That's really what we're hoping for. Trump policies is to scare people first. If you are afraid, you will beg for mercy. From China's perspective, this is blackmail, and China is different from America's allies. It is relatively independent and will not be fooled by America, he said. So this is what their guy is still saying. You know, listen. And this is what I think. This is what Trump is also ultimately trying to test, to see how much do our economies rely on each other. I think it's still going to be a large amount. I don't believe that China is willing to give up one of their biggest trade partners. People who the American dollar pretty much feeds into their economy through the way of all of our consumerism behaviors. You know, we're willing to go into debt to buy Chinese goods, but if we increase the price, how many people are still going to be willing to pull out their credit card to pay for an overpriced Temu item that they already know is not worth much? But I keep going to Temu because I'm picking on them, but at the end of the day, that's the level of consumer spending that needs to stop. So if these tariffs come in and that is cut out, people are able to save their monies or redirect that money to other companies that are we deem more deserving of that money. This is supposed to be the theoretical plan. We're just gonna have to wait and see. I don't know where it's gonna go from here. I wonder what you guys think, honestly. So this is referring back to when Trump actually implemented the tariffs on China. So in the U.S. on Thursday, stocks closed down sharply, with the S&P 500 notching its biggest one-day drop since the summer of 2020. That makes sense. Obviously, during COVID, that would have been one of the worst times for stocks. On a day branded Liberation Day, Trump on Wednesday announced tariffs on imports of almost every country in the world. So pretty much anybody who buys our goods or anybody who wants to sell, anytime we try to sell goods in all these other countries, they pretty much come with these amazing tariffs that make the product so much more expensive that it's better to buy whatever comes locally or whatever is made within the I guess like the region. Doesn't necessarily have to come from that country, but this is something I've witnessed myself just living in Europe, that you rarely see any American products other than like snack shops or something. There's like specialty stores. Very few brands are over here that I would see in America. And that's not just saying they're American products, but things that like our markets are completely different. I've noticed that just even being over here. These included new tariffs at 34% on China's goods on top of 20% levy imposed in February, as Trump accused Beijing of not doing enough to stop the flow of fentanyl and its precursors into the U.S. It is also in addition to existing tariffs on goods, including some appliances, machinery, and clothing, and they were already as high as 45% after Trump's first round of tariffs. Yeah, so I mean, we've already seen these tariffs coming into place to battle with China, but I guess we're just going to keep upping the ante pretty much, and they're in retaliation doing the exact thing back to American companies that are actually in China, pulling it off. So we're just going to see pretty much both countries divest from each other, but will the consumers be the ultimate? The consumers will be the ultimate losers in these situations when you really think about it. So yeah, in summary, pretty much Trump is going to play a game with our economy, with both of our economies. We're going to see just who needs more over the other. Like I said, I still think it's going to be America's problem before anyone else's issue. But I guess the bet is we have enough money to withstand this kind of pressure coming from our own government. The money that should be generated from these tariffs, if we so choose to buy the product still, even with the increased prices, that money is essentially supposed to be going back to the government to be put into programs that benefit America, if we're putting America first. Now, obviously, what ends up happening to our taxes is it gets sent over to other countries for them to be able to fight wars and conflicts on our behalf. And we all end up losing in the long run because the future generations of those countries hate us and our dollar is getting weaker by the second. So I don't know. We will just have to see where this goes, but I just want to put out some breaking news before it gets out here, and just keep an eye on this story. I'm very interested. This is going to affect everybody. I'm no expert on finances, but I think we're all going to get hit by this and hurt by this. So it should be up to the everyday man to talk about how this is affecting them. But anyway, if you guys have any comments that you'd like to share, please put them down below, like and subscribe, and share this video if you guys are enjoying the content. It's Inselbergmedia. This is Deontay, and we'll see you next time.